Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance podcast, where heart-centered entrepreneurs, visionaries, and the everyday heroes in your backyard are helping the world break free to live life more purposefully, one story at a time. I am Seema Giri, your host, an award-winning author, entrepreneur, and holistic lifestyle strategist. Today's show is sponsored by Uplift Media. For strategies on how to break free to your brilliance and get your free gift, 10 Ways to Live a Dynamic Life, visit seemagiri.com. Sunil, welcome to our podcast. It's so wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you, Seema. It's a pleasure to be here. This is wonderful to see the success of the book and really happy to be here.
Yes, and congratulations. Sunil is a co-author in our Break Free to Peace, Love, and Unity book that hit #1 international best-selling status, which means that Sunil Cherian is now a #1 international best-selling author. How does that feel?
Feels cool. Thank you. you have been on a roll.
Yes, this is our second compilation and the second book to hit that status. But, it's the effort of everyone together. And it's so important, I feel, that to bring this kind of a message, especially during this time where we're still dealing with the pandemic part 2. And it's turned out to be much longer than we expected. And then the divide that we're all feeling. What made you decide to be part of this anthology while we were going through all of this?
So I think my wife, Renu, had participated in the first anthology. And that was a great experience. It was well orchestrated, well managed. The launch event was well done. And I think she convinced me along with Seema that, hey, maybe I should give it a try. And there was an opportunity, so I said, okay, fine. Let me see if I can write at least a chapter.
And you did a wonderful job. So why don't you tell our listeners what is the title of your chapter and what can they expect by reading it?
So the idea behind that chapter actually came because I was thinking about my son, and he's a high achiever in high school and college. And in my life, I've gone through ups and downs. So the question is, how do you deal with failures? Mm-hmm. And what is the mindset that you need to have? So my motivation behind was to really tell other people, how do you have a strong mindset and how do you really work through those kind of scenarios? And how do you find your mojo again?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, it's been very well written. Has your son read your chapter yet?
Yes, and in fact, he was a reviewer and editor as well.
So he got the first-hand experience, hot off the press, even before off the press.
Yes, and the validation was when he was applying for some college programs. Some of these ideas and concepts were actually coming out through his own words.
Oh, nice. It's always wonderful when your children are participating along with you and being a part of the process versus just reading it after it's done.
Yeah.
What do you think he has learned just going through this process?
I think the main thing is learned is to have a little bit more patience and not to be too hard on himself in terms of his expectations. And otherwise, he would come home, if he got anything less than 97 or 99 or something, he'd be unhappy. It's like, come on, that's not the end of the world. I mean, in fact, I was joking with a friend of mine recently, and he was saying that, hey, his father-in-law, I don't think he ever got anything less than a B in college, right? And can't say that for his son-in-law, right? I said, hey, if you got less than C's and D's, then maybe you're not too far away from being a billionaire.
That is true. I read somewhere that the A students work for the B and C students.
A students go on to be the professors.
Right. they have much more life experience because they had to, I guess, struggle so much more for success. So I think the valuation and the habits are a little bit different for them to get to that level. It's so interesting how we may all start from the same place, but our journeys are so different and the path is so different that you end up, success is always defined by you, but we generally go with society. So this is such a wonderful gift for you to give to your son, to be able to realize that success has has different variations, and it's up to you on how that is defined and not what the society is saying.
Right, and everybody goes through ups and downs. Yes, a matter of time, right? And if we have this focus in society around get good grades and be this and be that and things like that, you're kind of setting up them for failure later, because you're setting up a standard of perfection that they can never reach up to. And when they hit that later in life, they're unable to handle it. They don't know what to do, which causes a lot more issues than being able to deal with things as they come along. So part of it is really, it's like this journey that kids go through school and college. The standards that we're putting them up against are not really the right standards. I mean, having gone through 30 years after that, none of them matters.
Exactly. So what do you think? What are the key things to look at when you are trying to see, when you're what do you think are the keys to success given your experience and knowledge now?
I think one is realizing that you will have ups, you will have downs. So don't get over ecstatic when you are up. Yes, you want to be happy. Doesn't mean that you should suddenly become egoistic and then start becoming prideful. At the same time, when you are down, there's going to be an up as well. So don't get too depressed, thinking this is the end of the world and this is not good. Well, all it tells you is that you haven't learned enough. So there is a lesson waiting for you to be learned. And all you really have to look at is how babies learn to walk. The kids don't stop one day and say, "That's it, I'm not going to walk again." They keep trying. And one day they start crawling, they start walking, and then they start running. And life's like that. As long as you can maintain that equanimity and balance, you'll be fine.
That's true. So if you don't succeed the first time, it doesn't really mean you're a failure. Perhaps there's another way of trying or another perspective to look at. We keep trying to do the same thing over and over again in the same manner. And that's a key or cue for you to see, okay, let me look at it from another perspective, another angle.
Exactly. Maybe there's a different perspective. And I think a mentor of mine said, let's say you have a failure and the amplitude of that failure down is X. When you recover from that, you would at least have an amplitude that is twice of that.
Mm-hmm.
So don't look at it as you're just getting the momentum to go even further because you're starting from behind.
That's a good one. Yes, you have a momentum of going further because you're starting from behind. Yes. And we don't think of that, do we? We get so involved in that moment that it's hard to think of it at that time. So Sunil, what has been your biggest learning from one of your biggest failures?
I think the biggest learning is to learn to let go, which is sometimes you're attached to something for too long. And just recognizing that this is not working, and now is not the time for that. Maybe just take your hits and move on, try again. And maybe there's something else you need to do, something else you need to learn, and that may take some time to figure things out. But go do the other thing that maybe gives you the opportunities and the skills to come back and try this one if you really want to do the same thing again.
So I think there's a very fine line between letting go and quitting, or maybe even giving up.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know it's not one of the three? It's not quitting or giving up. Is there a sign? Do you feel something?
So the attachment is the key. So uh, you can say that once you quit, you're done, right? So if you quit, there is no more trying again, right? So if you don't come back and make a go at it, you have no more opportunity in that path, right? So letting go really means not letting go of that, letting go of the attachment to seeing that particular thing through to certain level, because that's kind of like a ego saying that, hey, I got to get it up to that level. Okay. But things never seldom get to that level by yourself. It's usually a team sport, and usually having to have a structure to do that. So letting go really means don't be attached to the outcome, do the best you can, and continuously focus on learning. So as you go through life, you improve yourself, and it's a constant improvement process, and the outcome will come as a result of it. But that particular thing that you chose may not be the right thing.
Well, this sounds more like a spiritual practice than an engineering practice, or is it a combination?
Engineering is all trial and error. And learning to eliminate. So the key message and the title of the chapter was around fail fast. The sooner you can fail, the faster you can learn. So if you don't attach any negative charge or emotion to the failure word, then it is just learning. So if you just think of it as learning, how quickly can I learn? And that means you have to look at the babies and how they learn. It is trial and error. Engineering is no different. It's trial and error. If you have a set of codified practices that says don't do this, if you build a big building without a good foundation, it's going to topple over. Yes, other people have learned the lesson before. Let's adopt that.
And I think that's a key point you just made. Adopt the learnings from other people who've tried before. And I think when we talk to children, especially, or even, some adults, they say, I need to make my own mistakes. I want to make my own mistakes. Let me do what I want to do. You're always going to be, you always have the opportunity of making your own mistakes, but you can make a more educated or go to the next level and make the mistake. Everyone has their own path, but if you take the learnings of other people, at least then you can get perhaps 10 steps further ahead versus where you would have been otherwise. Yeah. So there's still opportunity to make your own mistakes.
There's plenty. The main thing is you do need to surround yourself with good mentors, good sources of learning. It could be online content. So there is that distinction between what is good and what is not good. That is something you have to figure out. You also have to figure out your learning modality in terms of how you learn, and you have to have the good people around you. And because if you surround yourself with not so good people, then the things that you learn may not be so good.
How did you learn this lesson?
That is probably more of a spiritual lesson. Okay. And it's the idea of morals and what's right and what's wrong, right? And where is a gray, where is black, where is white, right? So that is a learning that you learn from your parents, from your society, from your religious institutions, and you have to kind of form that structure early on.
That is true. That is true. It's through the journey of your own life and meeting various people that you come to this conclusion. So how have you seen some of these things, the points that you've made in your book of failing faster? How has that applied into the businesses that you run and the people, the business owners that you mentor?
So I would say that last 30 years I've been in Silicon Valley, almost 30 years next year. Most of my life here has been in startups. And startups of various forms, small, big, large, big companies, etc. And every startup starts with the idea of a thesis. This is what we're going to market with. This is where we think there's an opportunity. And then if you don't quite get it right, you pivot. right? And I mean, so there are fancy terms that you do, but end of the day, this is just learning that that's not the right door to go through. You have to find the right door, and you have to find the right combination to pick the lock. And I think I had a customer I was talking to, and we were describing our current business. And the way he described it, Sunil, it looks like you've learned how to pick the combination for this particular lock. And that you figure out by a relentless focus on trying different things and being intelligent about what you can eliminate. The more mistakes that you can eliminate early on. You don't have to repeat the same mistakes other people did. Hopefully, you don't repeat the same mistakes twice and thrice, right? So if you can avoid those blind spots, then you can start converging on things because you're eliminating other stuff.
And then that's called customized solutions.
Customized solutions is called research and development. We can have fancy terms around it, but fundamentally it boils down to a structure of being open to learning and being curious and being willing to go out and try things that you are otherwise maybe a little afraid to try. So if you're not afraid to try, then you are actually open to learning quite a bit more.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head by saying being curious. The more you lead with curiosity, I think it leads to less frustration, which leads you open to learning. And if you just look at failure, we have that emotional charge to it. But if you, like you said earlier, remove that and replace it with it's a learning experience and one way that it doesn't work, then you're really open to a lot more possibilities. How have you had to pivot during this pandemic?
So interesting. When the pandemic kicked in, we stopped going to the office, and most of my meetings that I used to do locally were physical meetings. And then we started kicking off our lead generation campaigns online, and the meeting started happening on Zoom. So I would say that between the meetings and the lead generation campaigns in the last year, I would probably have done 300, 400 Zoom meetings. That is a much higher level of productivity than I would have had when I was driving to the office an hour or two back and forth. I would get a meeting or two. Now I have a lot more things done in the same amount of time because I'm not spending the same time on the road. So
that is amazing, because otherwise to get that many meetings, it would have taken you a couple of months to do that.
I remember some meetings where I flew from San Francisco to Mumbai and have one meeting in the morning and another meeting in the afternoon, because with Mumbai traffic, you could not get more than 2 meetings done in a day. One meeting was enough depending on how far it was from where you were. So it's very hard to get more than 2 or 3 things done in a day when you had to travel physically like that. And then you lost another 3, 4, 5 days in travel.
Yes, I remember those days. It's amazing how, yes, we're open to adaptations and adapted quickly in this situation. So you were able to pivot that way. That's wonderful.
On the flip side, I mean, there may be certain things where it was easier to establish trust, especially in a sales situation when you're physical. So there may still need to be a little bit of that. But if you can establish that trust, then you can actually move much further remotely using the tools that we have available today than if you had to depend on the older style all the time.
True. I think it's going to become more of a hybrid model going forward. And I think when you see each other enough, even on Zoom, because everyone's getting so much more comfortable now, that the building the know, like, trust factor is also going to increase.
True, and I, whenever possible, I try to do my meetings with video on Zoom.
Yes.
And partially it is for me to remember the other person. If I have one meeting and it's purely audio, I may not remember the conversation because I have so many conversations all the time, right? But once you see the same person twice, thrice on video, things start falling into place.
Very true. Very true. So, Sunil, what was one surprising thing that in your author's journey, what surprised you the most as you were writing your chapter?
The surprise was actually how easy it was, because you and team have the whole process under control. And my job was very easy, relatively speaking. So I did not expect that. So that was a positive surprise.
Nice, nice. And did you learn anything about yourself even more deeply as you were writing?
It opened me up to write a couple more books.
Oh, wonderful.
So we got a technical book coming up soon. So, but this gave me the momentum to think about, oh, yes, okay, it's doable, because I'd signed up to write a book a few years back and never got that done. Even though that was only a small book, I could not get it done. Whereas your process allowed me to get this thing done.
Amazing. Wonderful. Well, I'm really happy. So what is that one tip that you can give our listeners that they can implement in their life right away?
I think the idea that life is a journey, and the reward is not what you might be thinking for about this. I want this object or that object or something, but the journey is the reward, like Steve Jobs used to say. So enjoy the journey as you go along, and that's kind of where I close the chapter on the book too.
So it is the journey that is important, not the destination. Don't be so much in a rush to get to the destination, because the bliss and the learning will happen in the journey.
Yes, it's not that you don't want to have destination. The what I see many people doing wrong is they focus so hard on a goal, and they hit the goal and they're kind of lost. They don't go any further because that was all they aimed for. They got it, but now they don't know what is beyond that. Okay, I conquered Mount Everest. Now what? It's only down from there.
Yes, it's true. The people who've had like astronauts and people who've done some major things, after they're done with that, everything else seems not as big, and they get lost. I've read that in many places, that it actually leads them to depression.
Right, and it's because of that focus on that as the end goal. But if the end goal is a series of mountains that come along the way, and so there will be hills and valleys, and you go along, and as long as you're enjoying the journey, then it shouldn't really bother you. Okay, you got something done, great. What's next? Right? So think of it like a endless bucket list.
Yes. What's next?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Great insight, great tips, Sunil. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was really an enlightening conversation with you today.
Thank you. This was wonderful. So good luck with your new books.
Thank you, and good luck with your what next. And listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, this is Seema Giri. Thank you for joining us for this interview. I hope you've gained some insights and/or tips that you can implement right away. For more interviews like this, please visit us at seemagiri.com or visit our YouTube channel, Break Free to Brilliance with Seema Giri. Until next time, have a great day.